Today, we are back at the Southeast Collision Conference, and we are talking with Matthew DiFrancesco. He is an awesome resource. So if you are even thinking one day as a shop owner that you want to exit your business, he's a guy you want to talk to. And this is an episode you're going to want to check out. We talk about how to build value in your business because, like I said, one day you're not going to work in this place forever, folks. We also talk about some really cool business structuring, and it's a good conversation. Matt's a good guy, so check it out.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Hey, welcome back to today's episode of the Body Bangin' podcast, where we are at the Southeast Collision Conference talking to the speakers that are speaking there. And before we get into it today, of course, we have to thank our sponsor, Lombard Equipment. They not only sell new and refurbished equipment from Maine to Miami, but they are the guys to talk to. If you need them, they actually have live people to answer the phone. So you don't have to go through a call tree or whatever the heck those dumb things are that drives everybody nuts. So there's something to be said for that. So thank you, Lombard Equipment. And then we also have with us today my buddy, Matt, we call him DiFrancesco, owner of High Lift Financial. And he's also has a podcast as well. So your business, your life. I love it all.
That's right. No, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And like I told you, if I would have known I would have been on, I would have brought my Mickey Woods Marketing baseball cap. So.
Yeah, exactly. And represented.
That's right. Exactly.
We sprung this on Matt a little last minute, but he's a gamer, so we're rolling with it.
There we go. That's right. Exactly.
So Matt did a session this morning or actually the afternoon there at the Southeast Collision Conference in South Carolina. And the topic is building value in your shop. And this is something that I was reading the description, Matt, and I thought, I really hope people tune into this because it's so important, yet we get caught up. And I know I'm a former shop owner. I run my own marketing business. And I know how it is to get caught up in the day-to-day and we forget about and the stresses of the day-to-day. And we forget about building that value to create an exit strategy at some point. Like we can't do this forever.
Right. Oh, exactly. And, it's funny because Mike Anderson and I talk about this all the time. And Mike always makes the comment to his clients that you should always, every move that you make in your shop should have your succession in mind. And even if you don't have any strict plans that are in place, every move should make that transition easy, whether you've identified that successor or not. So I think that's the big mistake that most shop owners and basically any business owner makes is that we don't think about that. And then what happens is we get to a point in our life where we say, in 5 years, I want to start backing off. The problem is we get in the revolving 5-year program. So 5 years later, because we've done no planning, it's like, well, in 5 years, I'm going to start backing up. And it happens over and over and over again until we actually get a plan in place. And the problem is if you don't get a plan in place and then that inevitable time comes where you have to exit, now you're getting pennies on the dollar. This thing that you spent your whole life building, you're not getting the maximum value. And maybe you won't be able to support the lifestyle that you do want to have post-business.
Great point. So you talked about that today. Gosh, you had an hour-long session. So what did you, we can't obviously, this is like a 15-minute little chit chat, but we can't get into all the things. Exactly. But what are some of like the key takeaways that for people that couldn't get out to the conference that you like for them to be thinking about?
So I think the first part, and what I do is I break it down into a 3-step process.
Okay.
So the first step is always about you've got to create a personal vision of what you want your life after the business to look like. And I always use the example of a puzzle. So we've all put together puzzles, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to put together the puzzle without looking at the picture on the box?
Yeah.
Okay. It becomes really difficult, if not impossible, right?
Yes.
So we have to create that picture first of what we want our life to look like post-business. And then, do we want to be an industry leader? Do we want to have a multi-generational family legacy, or do we want to be a community asset? Do we want to provide an asset for all of our communities, or do we just want to do something different? We've got to create that vision. It goes back to Stephen Covey's begin with the end in mind, right? We got to know where we're going before we can even start.
Yeah.
So then the second step of the process is we have to then identify where are we? Okay. And I think that comes down to finding out what the value of our business actually is, what we have in personal assets, what we want that life to look like, what it's going to cost. And typically we find what's called a value gap, right? Meaning that we've got a gap that needs to be made up to be able to live that lifestyle that we want. So we've got one or two things that we can do. We can build personal assets, but that takes a long time to do that. Or we can raise the value of the business, which increases its own value, but also increases cash flow that can then come back to help fund. And now we start to close that gap. So then the third process is now we got to put a plan of action in place. And I basically look at it from three pillars. The first one is what's called business continuity planning. We have to start there, because if the event happens where we are run over by the Mack truck, or we become disabled, or a divorce happens, and now there's a fight over the family assets, how are we going to address that and ensure that the business continues and that the family's taken care of in these situations? So we got to put business continuity plans in, instructions, proper protections from buy-sell agreements if you've got partnerships, key person insurance, stay bonus programs to ensure that key employees stay, all those things. Then we can start building value in the business. And that's all through operational efficiencies. It's through, key employee retention, attracting and top talent. And then the third area is risk management. So looking at our basic stuff like, basic property, P&C, liability insurance, but also looking at things like business interruption. I mean, when COVID came, a lot of businesses saw a drop off. So things like that can interrupt our business. When you have the hurricanes in South Florida, those type of things. So do we have those adequate protections? And cybersecurity is the other area. So it's really kind of taking a three-step approach and then creating an action plan out of that. And then what I do is I basically act as the coach through all that, helping them to develop the picture, put the pieces of the puzzle, and then bringing in the professionals that need to be a part of that. So marketing's a great thing. We've talked about the need for digital marketing. Well, that's where I would bring somebody like you in, but I'm kind of the point person for that client. So again, we want to identify those areas where they're vulnerable and then develop an action plan to help them address those things, which will naturally build the value of the business.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And what you said at first with the puzzle and seeing the picture of the puzzle, I think that's such a great illustration, because how are you going to get somewhere? You don't even know. What is that supposed to look like? And I think that's what inhibits a lot of people from making forward progress or taking the appropriate steps, because they just don't know. So it's like, well, where do I begin? And getting somebody to help you like you do to come on board and almost force somebody to step back and go, okay, what does this look like? Right? Exactly. And again, I think sometimes people need that help. They need somebody that's going to help guide them through the process, because the unknown's scary. Yes.
And so a lot of times that's why we don't address these things, because it's too scary. But sometimes having somebody to lead us by the hand and walk us through it can help us to start to develop that picture. And it's amazing to me working with clients how, I'll get some of them to come in and say, look, I don't have any family that's interested in the business. My key employees aren't. I just want to sell to a third party. But then as we start developing this process, all of a sudden we find, wow, culture is really important to them. Oh, their employees are more important to them than what they thought. And I can address them and say, look, if we can get you to a point where you're only working 20, 30 hours a week, or maybe you're an incidental owner where you can almost be an absentee owner, do big picture stuff, but the shop runs itself. Would you want to keep the shop? And they're like, yes, I like that. They don't want to have to drive by a shop that they built from the ground up and all of a sudden see, one of the consolidators' names on it.
Right. Exactly.
Right. But you got to walk them through those exercises. And I can't tell you how many of them have said to me, like, wow, this has really been thought-provoking for me. And so it's a good exercise, I think, for every business owner, but especially for shop owners, because most shop owners they're car people and they love working on cars and they love the industry. But from a business standpoint, nobody's ever taught them how to start thinking like this.
Yes.
And so, again, that's where kind of the coaching comes in.
Well, yeah. And like you said, a 5-year plan, 5 years goes by and there's still no execution of anything. I mean, I feel like that's my life. I have all these ideas, but then like, I'm going to get to, I have every intention of making it happen. Yet time, the busyness of each day passes us by. And then we look up and we're like, crap, now I'm X amount of months or years and nothing got going. So I think it's incredible to put it on the radar.
And you know what? And what I try to do with clients is, you've heard the old adage, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah, right.
One bite at a time.
Yes.
Okay. So to break it, because all of a sudden they look at this picture and they think, wow, this is a lot to attack. But what we're going to do is we're going to prioritize and we're going to take one small bite. But as we do this on a monthly basis, all of a sudden then what I can show them is, because I use some software that can show a dynamic revaluation. I can say, look, these steps that we make, look how it's increased the value of your business.
Yeah.
And now they have a visual that they can see to say, oh my gosh, yeah, these little steps, they seem insignificant, but wow, I'm really surprised how much it's raising the value of the business.
Yeah. Well, then you get more buy-in, because if you can show the wins, then now they're more inclined to be like, oh, okay, this is exciting.
Right.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So did you get any questions or anything in the class?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot. It's actually interesting. I think a couple things that people don't think about is what type of entities they are. And the differences between an S Corp, a C Corp, a sole proprietor. And there's not to say that one's right. It really depends, again, on your personal situation and then what that end goal wants to be.
Right.
So, for example, if you're looking at a multi-generational legacy, there may be some benefits to doing a C Corp. Yeah, you're going to have some double taxation issues that we have to navigate through, but it may be your benefit to do that. If you're eventually looking at a third-party sale, they're going to want you to be an S Corp. So again, it's your personal situation. There's no right or wrong. It really is going to depend on, again, you have to have that end picture first to determine that. So that was a lot of the questions I got. Also about separating out entities. I'm a real big proponent of creating as many separate entities. So real estate should be a separate entity. If you've got towing, that should be a separate entity. Mechanicals can be a separate entity, because now you spread your risk, right? And you also create multiple cash flow streams. And from an estate planning process, if you've got non-business active kids, they could inherit a part that maybe the other kid doesn't have, right? Either as a cash flow stream or to run it themselves if that's what they choose. So you've got a lot of estate planning vehicles that you can do to help create fair solutions between the business active kids and non-business active kids. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility when you're planning.
Wow. Yeah. Great point. I am a huge proponent also for creating, especially because we're seeing with the change in the industry right now, we've got body shops that were always body shops, but now it's like, okay, I need to find other income streams, because now the collision work is dying. So we see body shops going into mechanic shops and now expanding into that, or vice versa. We've got mechanic shops now going into body shop side of it. So I like the idea of keeping them separate. And then we've got the ADAS calibrations happening. And then, like you were mentioning, tow truck wrecker service, that type of thing. So, and I know some companies even have their like pre-scan, post-scans in a separate entity. So great point.
Right.
Really good point.
Yeah. And, and one of the hangups, and I actually had one guy who was like, he actually had a dealership and they had a body shop and it was too small. And now they're getting into not just doing dealership work, but outside work. And he was asking about the separate entities. And he said, well, but I've got employees that cross over. And I'm like, well, that's a really easy solution, because what you do is they're employed by the dealership and you lease them to the body shop. So the body shop is basically leasing those employees. So you don't have to change any payroll structures. It's just how it moves on paper. So it becomes an expense over here as a vendor expense to the dealership. And there's a lot of, so there's a lot of cool ways to do that too.
Great point. Yeah. I didn't think about that. That is a good idea though. See, that's the guy to talk to. Matt, I'm going to put your information in the show notes. So if people listening to this have questions, they can shoot you an email. And I know you're always open to helping people. So even if they have just a couple questions, you'd be fine if they reached out.
That's fine. I think that's great. They can also go to my website, highliftfinancial.com.
Right.
There's a tab right at the top that says Let's Talk. I give everybody 20, 30 minutes of my time. And I always say this, even if I can't help you or it's just not a fit, I will always get you pointed in the right direction. That's my promise to you. And I do that for Mickey Woods people all the time. So I'm more than happy to help out my buddy Mick.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say
guess he crawled over my shoulder.
Yeah. See, he doesn't want to be on camera, but I can't keep him off camera. So go figure.
I know. It's
on his terms.
Exactly.
Josh Kent, for those of you guys that aren't watching.
It's gotta be on his terms.
Yeah. Josh Kent's peeking his head in the screen.
I know.
I love it. Okay. So we've got highliftfinancial.com. Matt's email is also in the description. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate you. I'm sure you gave so much quality content today. I wish I could have been there to listen next year.
We would love to have you. We got to have you here too. And we'll get Laura here. The three of us will raise some hell. How about that?
Yeah. I like it. All right. Well, everybody, thank you guys for listening. We know these are short little clips from the Southeast Collision Conference, but there's going to be another one dropping tomorrow. So if you're not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe and the notifications bell on YouTube. It'll notify you, and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those good things. You can just click the follow button so you don't miss an episode. And then we're going to wrap it up, of course, saying thank you to Lombard Equipment, our favorite equipment manufacturer. And even if you're looking for equipment and they're not in your area, they're not serving your area, they are still totally happy to talk to you. So if you want to ask them some questions and make sure you're buying the right equipment, or if you think you're getting a good deal or getting ripped off, give them a ring. They're good guys. They'd love to help you out. So thanks again, Matt. Appreciate you.
All right. Oh, great seeing you too. Thank you for having me on, Mick.
See you soon.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.